Huzzah. So this is the February 25th edition of the Kubernetes community meeting. It is public, it is recorded, and it will be posted on YouTube. Notes will be posted on the Kubernetes blog, and we have quite a fun agenda ahead of us today, which just dropped back into the document. Thank you so much, Joe.
No problem.
First up is going to be a demo by Redspread. Mackenzie Burnett is going to be leading that. We have a quick 1.2 release from TJ Golterman. He'll be joining at about 10:15, so if we're any ahead of schedule, we may have to move the agenda around slightly. If anyone has a use case or wants to introduce themselves, we can do that for a few minutes. Then we have a networking SIG update, and it looks like a cluster ops short deployment or short update here that I don't think Rob is going to be able to join us. So we will move through this. Mackenzie, are you on the line? Oh, and we will mute some people. Thank you. Mackenzie, are you on the line? All right, let me go ping Mackenzie. She was just asking me if we were still on.
So while we're waiting for that, I just want to do a quick call out. I gave a sort of Kubernetes 101 presentation the other day, and I put the slides up on GitHub with a Creative Commons license. And so I'll put a pointer to that in the notes. Anybody who has to sort of give a soft intro, feel free to borrow, steal, adapt that stuff, fork it, send me some PRs if you like, that type of thing. So.
Very cool. We've had asks recently about starter content for people who want to go out and make talks about Kubernetes. So that's really cool.
On that same topic, I'm trying to get some time to publish what we call our Uber deck, which is our starting point for most of our presentations. If anybody's seen me or our core team present, they've probably seen slides from this deck. I'd like to make that something that people can use as a starting point too.
Okay, so Mackenzie says she's on the video here.
Hey everyone.
There we go. Excellent. Thanks, Tim. And this will be super exciting to get a bunch of content that people can use as starter content. It's going to be really helpful. Okay, so let's jump to the Redspread demo. So Mackenzie, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and your demo? I heard good things about it from the Wednesday night meetup.
Yeah, sure. And Dan is here as well.
Hi, how's it going?
My co-founder. Hi everyone. I'm Mackenzie, Stan. We're building Redspread, which is a command line tool to deploy Docker to Kubernetes in one command, with the idea of building out a suite of collaborative deployment tools on top of Kubernetes. I guess I'll share my screen just to go a little bit into, I have some slides that talk through like what we did, and I can go into a demo as well. So, so let me just share my screen. Cool. So we just open sourced Sunday. So we've been working on it for a while. We're in the current Y Combinator batch, and I'm really excited to get feedback and just getting a bunch of emails and everything from people who are excited about it, which is awesome to talk to more people than just ourselves. So this is who we are. You can find us, email us, just our first names at redspread.com. So Spread is a tool to build an image, push to the registry, and deploy to Kubernetes in one command. And we built this to enable rapid iteration with Kubernetes. Dan can talk a little bit through why the workflow with Kubernetes just wasn't something that
just the amount of starting and stopping with it and having to individually create objects and having to every time think it was just slides.
Yeah, totally. And so we just wanted it to be like the easiest way to deploy Docker to production. So roadmap, we have the deploy to Kubernetes in one command. Next thing we're doing is doing the building and pushing with that. And then the third thing that we're looking toward is offline development with a local Kubernetes cluster. And I'm going to go to the demo now so you can see that. So we set up something where you just deploy a Mattermost, which is open source Slack. So you type in spread deploy, deploys the objects, and then it returns a public IP address if you specify type load balancer. And you can stick that in your browser, and it is running on your cluster. And so the idea is to be super easy to do that. So this is a little bit of how it works. It's client side only. We don't have a server component to it. It uses a very large portion of kubectl code. The idea is to allow Kubernetes to be Kubernetes and us to wrap it as little as possible. And it builds from this directory convention. So we have, there isn't really a standard now for building directories, and I'd love to get feedback on this. But basically you have Dockerfile, you have your pod and your RC and a .kube folder, which holds your other Kubernetes objects. And we're also introducing this idea of a .ctr file, which is where your container lives. You can still put containers in pods and RCs, but the idea with the container file is that you can, it enables eventually you to be able to reuse containers across an application. We can talk a little bit about how we're thinking about embedding different objects, so you can build sort of an application just through links if someone's interested in that. This is our concept roadmap. So I talked a little bit the idea of building an application through linking between kube objects. Second thing we're thinking about is parameterizing configuration. So that common config value should be parameterized. You don't have to manually go into YAML files to change them. And the third thing that we're really excited about, and this is where we really see what we're building going toward, is versioning. So both application versioning and deployment versioning. So you should be able to access revisions across an object and config history in a deployment. And yesterday we talked a little bit at the SIG config hangout about how in 1.2 you can do this a little bit with RCs and pods. And sort of have access to the entire revision. What we're thinking is that there's a lot of instances, a lot of use cases for having to track individual objects and configurations and the versions of those across the entire application, and easily be able to roll back to earlier revisions. So this is where we see the future of spread, is this idea of Git for Kubernetes, a Unix-like minimal version container workflow for the command line. So everyone's like, how can I contribute? I'm sure you're asking. So first you can install spread. We have a brew tap and install, and the Linux and Windows is coming very soon. Sorry guys. And you can check out our GitHub repo. Would love to have discussion of these concepts that we're talking about in our issues. Really, it's just us talking to ourselves a lot of the time. So it's really nice to have other people in that discussion. Angry bug reports are very welcome, feature requests, and then building examples with that directory structure we talked about. Yeah, so again, this is who we are. And I will stop screen sharing now if I can find.
Great, thanks. I'll just make a pitch for the configuration and deployment SIG. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, please do come and participate. It's great to see Redspread and other people try interesting new forms of deployment onto Kubernetes. There are a lot of things coming in this space in 1.2, and those are also under discussion in the SIG.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions,
I actually have one question. You said you use kubectl code. If you have any suggestions for how to reorganize the kubectl codes,
cool, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely contact me, file a GitHub issue,
Right.
find me or something. So.
Anybody else have questions for Mackenzie and Dan? Not looking like it. Unless you're on mute, this is your last call. Quick, find the mute button.
And you can also just email us too, like firstname@redspread.com, or find us on GitHub or Slack, or like we're super accessible. So.
No, thank you very much. It looks really interesting. I'll have to play with it.
Yeah, totally.
Very cool. Well, thank you both for joining us. So we have a couple of minutes. I haven't seen TJ join yet. So TJ, jump up and down and wave if you have joined. Otherwise, I will.
Just hop on.
Oh, he did just join. Fantastic. Then I won't jump my item ahead. So
Sure.
go right ahead. What's the 1.2? What's the word on 1.2?
Yeah, so on 1.2, not a big update. A week ago in this meeting, we sort of decided to go with a day-for-day slip on the branch because the number of bugs that still block 1.2 are pretty high. In the past week, that has remained true. If you look in the milestone v1.2, at the priority 0 and priority 1 bugs, we're still right around 80, and we want to get that number lower before we branch. We've also had a lot of trouble with the submit queue in the last week. The number of test flakes and flake bugs has actually gone up. Some of that due to tests that were written for new 1.2 features that are now running all the time in the queue instead of just running occasionally before they got flipped on. So good feedback and something to keep in mind for the same period of 1.3. So I think that's basically no new data, still sort of in a slip. I would venture to say March 7th does not look likely at this point for a final release. So the release will probably slip out at least to the end of that week, probably the next week. And like I say, it's hard to know until we sort of turn the corner on all these flakes and really stabilize the world. That is really.
Anybody have questions or specific things they want to chat about around 1.2?
As always, any help appreciated with any bug labeled with the flake label or in the v1.2 milestone, especially if it's unassigned or if it has been stagnant for more than a few days. Poke your nose in there if you can help out and ask to take it or whatnot. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll also be aware that, as we try to wrap up 1.2, we're not going to be reviewing or merging non-1.2 changes. We just don't have the bandwidth and we can't afford to destabilize the. So we appreciate your patience. We'll try to wrap this up as quickly as we can.
Awesome. We are still pushing. Not surprisingly. The other thing of note is just to remind people, we will bring a list of features from the Google team to the meeting on March 3rd, which isn't to say it's a list of absolute features that are completely committed. It's the list of features we expect to work on and are committing resources to. We will then share that with you all. You can go back during the week of KubeCon because we're not going to have a meeting on 3/10 because a lot of the community is going to be in London for KubeCon, and of course trying to put this in the middle of an off schedule conference is pretty challenging. So we're asking that the community teams, so the different companies or individuals that have things they want to work on in 1.3, bring that feature list to the 3/17 meeting, and then we can start playing how do these all fit together and what do we really make of a 1.3 in that March 17th meeting. So that's the update on 1.2 and 1.3. Does anybody have more questions about those before we move on? I'll take that as a no. Is there anybody either new or having a particular use case that you'd like to discuss? So introductions if you're new to this group and you want to just say hi, or a use case that you've been working on that is interesting that you want to share? So somebody unmuted.
I'm not sure if you're going first, Ariel.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ariel from Stagpoint Cloud, and this is my first meeting. Haven't been bored.
Welcome, Ariel.
So I just wanted to introduce myself as well. I'm Milan from over at Datadog, and looking to chat with folks about how they're monitoring Kubernetes in production or in other environments. And so happy to chat with folks. I'm on the Slack, or I'll probably start joining these meetings a little bit.
We also have a note in chat from Sahil saying he's new and have attended quite a few meetings. So here's hoping that they're helpful and useful. Elon, Rob, Hirschfeld is not on the call right now, and but he is running the SIG cluster ops where monitoring is working on where monitoring is now. I think, did I do an introduction and email in there?
Yeah, I know. I've known Rob from wearing, both of us wearing other hats. So, but you did introduce us, and we're going to connect on that. Awesome. There's also a note in chat that David Aronchik really wants your email or Slack or some way to connect with you. And we have Tommy joining us from Dallas and trying to wrap his brain around the concepts. That's awesome.
As long as we're doing introductions, I'm Josh Mize with Mozilla. We're hoping to put Kubernetes into production later this year. Hopefully
Very
Q2.
exciting. Let us know how we can help. We've got a bunch of new people today. That's very cool. It also, I think, is the largest number of participants on this call that I've ever seen.
I guess I can introduce myself. I'm Andrew. Not really using Kubernetes in production yet, or any really more than just playing with it, but just wanted to jump in the meetings and see what's going on.
Fantastic. We also have Joe Thompson from CoreOS. And yes, we can put a pitch in for the upcoming fest. There's an upcoming CoreOS fest, and I believe that Datadog is sponsoring it. And Michelle from Deis has joined. This is super exciting. We've got a lot of new people today. And I'll let the chat window continue on. If anybody else wants to do the video intros, we can do that. Otherwise, we can continue having little new introductions in the chat group, which is great. All right, no more videos. Then let's go on to SIG reports. Tim Hawkin is going to talk about the the networking SIG. We had a request for an update from the networking SIG.
Hi, everyone. So an update on the networking SIG. We actually meet later today. So this update is a couple weeks old. We have been working primarily on a specification or a proto specification for a third-party resource to describe network policy, specifically micro-segmentation is what most people are calling it. The ability to say, pod X can talk to service Y, but not service Z, or that all my front ends can talk to the back ends, but not to each other in case of compromise, those sorts of things. We have arrived at what we think is a spec that most people agree has the semantics that we want. We're going to iron out a few of the details around naming and structure still, but the semantic is there. And in fact, the same day we sort of put a bow on that, the folks over at Calico, who I don't know if anybody's on this call at this moment, but the folks at Calico raced to put their Calico demo up online. So they've got a running demo, an animated GIF that you can look at that shows the Calico product enforcing network policy based on which is pretty neat. It was really the thing that most people have been asking for around networking. And so I'm happy that we have this proto spec in terms of in time for 1.2. I keep saying proto spec because there's actually nothing in the spec that requires changes in the 1.2 code. It's all based on annotations and a third-party resource, which existed already. So we don't need to actually make any changes in 1.2 to start people playing with it. Assuming that people like it, hopefully we'll crystallize it a little bit more and put it into beta in the 1.3 cycle.
Thanks. Anybody have questions about the networking SIG? Where to join? Questions about networking? Networking super easy.
Easiest problem we've got.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Tim. That was awesome. Are there any other SIG representatives who want to give an update? I use the term representative very loosely here, so if you've been to a SIG and you think it's cool and you want to give an update, go for it.
Hey, Bob Weiss here. Just based mostly on 1.2 overhead, we decided to postpone our meeting for this week. But I did want to take a moment and recommend everyone who's interested in scalability take a read of the excellent CoreOS blog post on scheduler scaling. So good shout out to those guys. Thanks, that's it.
Awesome. All right, any other SIGs want to do a quick report out? All right, we got a request for an update about SIG auth, which is now scheduled for March 3rd. And I've got another space for another SIG. Does anybody have any particular special interest groups they'd like to hear from next week? You're really interested in AWS, OpenStack, networking, nodes. All right, well, you can drop your notes in the doc, if in the community meeting doc, if you have suggestions for particular SIG report outs. Or on the wiki, you can find all the information about SIGs as well. I mentioned there were a little bit of notes from the ClusterOps SIG this week, which are in our notes. The meeting last Friday went really well, discussed the charter and a working deployment. There is a SIG ClusterOps meeting this afternoon at 1 p.m. Pacific time, so that's in 3 hours. And Rob is going to make an announcement about the ClusterOps SIG on the new stack to recruit more people. So more places that we will be finding more users of Kubernetes, which is super exciting. All right, so the last thing that I had this morning was I talked a little bit about the Google Summer of Code and made a big call for volunteers last week in the mailing lists on Slack and here. And we didn't get a lot of people jumping up to be mentors, so we didn't apply. We have the opportunity to do this again next year. If by some chance the Google Summer of Code team comes to us and says we really, really, really want you, then I will come out with the thumb screws and come looking for mentors. But we had only one person say that he was interested in being a mentor, and that's just not enough to maintain a real core group for Google Summer of Code. That was my last update for this morning. Does anybody have anything else they want to do, or is this going to be the world's shortest Kubernetes community hangout? No topics?
Does anybody have any PRs that need attention?
Ooh, you've opened yourself up.
Yeah. For 1.2. If it's not 1.2, I'm not looking at it. But.
Are there any 1.2 pull requests that need help? Ooh, there was a question also in chat about the progress of dynamic provisioning. So we can put that on the schedule for either next time or is that something you want to field?
I don't understand.
Look up all
dynamic provisioning of volumes. Is that the to whomever posted on chat? Is that the topic? Yes. I can give an update on that. There's a very rudimentary form of dynamic provisioning in 1.2, but it turns out to be at odds with the Kubernetes work. We didn't realize there was a sort of collision of interests there, and we both ended up doing something that aren't compatible. So we've got a PR in flight to make it work. It's not something we're super happy with, and it will be resolved in the 1.3 cycle, but it should be enough to make it work in 1.2.
Andrew, is that enough information for you? Sweet, thanks. Fantastic. All right. Did anybody dig up PRs for 1.2 that you want to hit Brian with? I wasn't really trying to avoid that question. I was really trying to give you all time to dig out what the PR numbers were. All right, well, you know where to find him on GitHub, on Slack, in the ether, probably by email. There are myriad ways to find us. thank you all for joining. And unless somebody puts their hand up right now, really quick, then I think we're done for the week. And we will see you next week, March 3rd, to talk about, let me do a quick pitch of this. March 3rd is going to be a demo of Kubernetes Anywhere, which is the Weaveworks team is working on that. We'll do another 1.2 release watch. Either Craig McLucky or myself will do a Compute Foundation update. We're having a big working meeting this afternoon. And then we will have a SIG auth update and the 1.3 Google features commits. So I will look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Yep. Bye. Back to the trenches.
Exactly. Go, make 1.2 go.